Hey, welcome back to Hoffman Leatherworks. Today we're going to be making a leather gun holster for a Sig 226 with a lining, and we're going to do it for a left-hand carry, just to change it up a little bit. When you get the pattern, you can either do a right or left-hand carry. Those patterns are available on my website, hoffmanleatherworks.com, on Etsy, on Bonanza, lots of places. So we start off like normal. We print out the pattern, we grab some leather, and we tape the pattern down and get ready to start punching some holes. I like to trim it up a little bit just to... I actually don't know why, but here we are, adding the lining. It's just a kip skin, so we go ahead and mark it out just for easy reference. It's not all that important to be very precise, but it helps a little bit. So go ahead and just use a good contact cement. Get everything glued up. You can use lots of different linings on these holsters, but this is just what I prefer. I think it's a 2 to 3 ounce kip skin. So when we get all the pieces glued up, we'll leave the glue sit for about 5 minutes. Get a little bit tacky. Remember, if you like this video, to hit the like button and subscribe. I got a lot more videos coming. So here we're just getting these glued together. This is where the lines, the tracing that you made earlier, comes in handy. You can just lay it right back down wherever you want it, and I just take a roller and roll it out. Make sure it's good and tight on there. And then I use an X-Acto knife. Of course, you can, use anything you want, but I use an X-Acto knife and cut out the trim it up. Get ready to start punching the holes. So since we are using the lining on this one, you'll see on the pattern there's lines that designate for just the lining and then the holster itself. So, of course, on this one, since we got the lining, we will be stitching or using all of the holes, punching all the holes on the pattern. So we'll go ahead and just punch the holes. I use a 1.5 millimeter punch for these, but of course you could use anything you want, and of course if you have a sewing machine and you want it to be sewn with the machine, you wouldn't punch these holes at all, but the pattern will still work. So there you go. I think you know how to punch the holes. So here's the pattern after all the holes are punched. And if you notice, I only punch the belt slots on one piece. It doesn't matter which, but you'll see when it comes up, but it's a lot easier to get those holes lined up if you only do one at this point. So then you just trim it up I use a utility knife with a nice sharp blade. All those fancy knives that you can spend, I don't know. I don't think they're worth the money. Utility knife works as good as any of. I've tried all. I got a bunch of different leather knives and all that. Utility knife still works the best. Gets a little dull, put a new blade in it. They're cheap. So here it is once I dye it. You can dye it before, after, doesn't really matter. I dye it before sometimes, and then I'll leave where I'm going to be gluing. I'll leave that without dye. Just dye the inside. So we'll go ahead and sew those, just the lining first, as you can see there. And then with that done, once the stitching just for the lining part is done, we'll go ahead and start the glue up of the holster itself. We do one side at a time, just makes it a lot easier. So I'll put glue on the one side, let it dry for about 5 minutes. I use a bunch of these little awls to help locate the holes. For me, it's a lot easier. You know, we're punching holes in 2 different pieces of leather, and then we're expected to line them up exactly. So this goes a long ways in helping that, especially on the second side, because the front piece of leather is a fair amount bigger to give you a little pocket when you're doing your wet molding. So here you'll see we're gluing up that second side, and the fact that that front piece of leather is quite a bit bigger. Like I said, using those awls really help get those holes exactly lined up. You can see we're just lining that up, and you can see how that starts to form a nice pocket there to help in the wet molding process. Remember to hit subscribe, and we'll be having lots more videos coming out. And the like button if you find any of this useful. Leave a comment if you'd like to know more, if you have any questions. But so we get this all glued up, lined up, and then we'll finish the belt hole punches you see there. And I did some work on the edges. We'll go ahead and, dye those and finish up the edges and do all that too. But at this point, we're ready to do some wet forming. You can do the edges before, after, doesn't matter. I sometimes do them before and then, hit them a little bit more after, but however you want. So we'll go ahead and put this in some water. My bucket's getting a little low there, so people say you got to have warm water and all that. It doesn't matter. It's water. It gets wet. The leather gets nice and pliable. So don't go, breaking yourself up about is the water the right temperature. Doesn't matter. So we'll go ahead and just get this fit. Do a little hand molding. Make it all nice. At this point, we've let it dry overnight. Did some more work on the edges. And there you go. You got yourself a nice holster. Last a lifetime.